Hello guys, welcome back to the Digital Aviator channel and to another part of the Microsoft Flight Simulator Basics tutorial. In the previous video we have learned all about trimming and power for airspeed and altitude management. So if you are still struggling a little bit to understand that, maybe watch the video again and just get yourself in the air in the simulator and try descending, try climbing, try leveling off with the power, try changing your airspeed while flying level, change your airspeed while climbing, change your airspeed while descending, get a feeling for what the trim does, how much you need to control it, how much you need to control the power, and it will really help you out flying the plane. So once you get more comfortable with that and you can fly level for a moment, let's move on to this video where we are going to talk about making turns, and I'll talk about maneuvering the plane while looking outside instead of looking at our instruments too much. So right now I'm still roughly on the same heading as the runway. I haven't made any turns, so the runway is probably way beyond me. I can't even see it anymore. So we probably want to turn around at some point. Maybe you're getting completely lost, it doesn't matter. You can always just restart the simulator, restart the plane. But at some point we want to return to the airport. So we need to turn around. And you probably also want to make some other turns while flying. So obviously turning is done by rolling the plane. As you can see, this makes it roll to the left. It makes the plane turn to the left. You probably already figured it out. Roll to the right, we turn to the right. But there's another thing that happens other than turning if you roll to the left and to the right. And if you make very gentle turns, like so, that's not really going to be noticeable. But it will be if I make some steeper turns. So let me make a little bit of a more steep turn to the left and watch what happens. So this is this is actually not a steep turn, but it's steeper than very gentle. And you'll see a couple of things happen. My vertical speed dipped down very aggressively. As a result of that we were descending and the airspeed went up. And now because the airspeed is up, we actually pitch up and are now climbing again. So we are very far from, coordinated and balanced. So let me level off again, roll back. There we go. And let's talk about what happened here. So let's go to the outside view actually. And it's quite loud actually. Let me lower the volume slightly on my headset. Hopefully it's not too loud for you guys. There we go. So our plane is staying in the air because of an upward force. Something is pushing the plane up because gravity created by the Earth wants me to move down again. So this upward force is created by the wings and it always points up from the wings. Now if I have the wings level, like so, that upward force points up in the opposite direction as the gravity kind of points. Right? The gravity points down, the lift points up. And if that's in balance, we are flying level. But as I make a turn, well obviously that lift force is from the wings, so it's no longer pointing straight up from the ground, it's now on an angle. So that makes it descend. Because we have less upward pointing lift, it's now a little bit sideways. And that's why we start to descend. So let me roll back out here. So how do we fix this issue? Well, by pitching up during the turn. It's as simple as that. We want to prevent going down. I just pitch up just enough to keep flying level. So let me make a turn to the left. And as I make that turn, I'm watching my vertical speed indicator. Let me actually fix that vertical speed a little bit by fixing my airspeed. So we fly at 0 vertical speed again. There we go. So I'm going to make a turn to the left and I watch my vertical speed indicator. It's going down, so I'm pulling on the yoke a little bit. Just enough so that the vertical speed goes up. It's a very little bit of pulling that we need to do. But now I'm making a turn and the vertical speed isn't changing. As a result of that, the airspeed also isn't changing. And because of that, if I roll back out, the plane is completely stable. It's not pitching up or down, it's not changing airspeed, it's not changing vertical speed, because we were already trimmed correctly before that. You might want to retrim a little bit because you might head into a different wind direction and that has an impact on the plane. Over time you might want to trim a little bit to fix your airspeed. You don't just set it once and then forget about it for the whole flight, but you can see what happened. The vertical speed is still back to 0 because the airspeed didn't change, and I mean it's all very nice. So that's as simple as that. We just turn, let's turn to the right, and I'm pulling on the yoke, pitching up manually a little bit, just enough to keep that vertical speed at 0 feet per minute. So let me turn back east because I was flying westbound. And I want to go kind of back towards the airfield as I talk about the next thing I want to talk about. So that's turning. Very simple. So there we go, back towards the east. Alright, so all of the things we have done in the air so far, accelerating, decelerating, climbing, descending, turning, we have really done it by looking at our instruments. Looking at the airspeed, looking at the altitude, looking at the vertical speed, our heading. We also want to be able to do those things by looking outside. Now, yes, we are not going to look outside the whole flight because these instruments tell us valuable information, but it's just like driving in a car. You don't want to be looking at your dashboard all of the time because it doesn't tell the whole picture. It doesn't tell you where you're going. You know, you need to stay on the road. Now, we don't have roads in the air, but still I need to know where I'm going. I mean, just roughly north or east or northeast, that's not really enough. I need to look outside, see landmarks, follow roads, follow rivers, fly towards a lake, fly towards whatever this sand flat is. We can find villages. That is how you navigate your plane. That is how you fly around the world. You have a chart open, a VFR chart, Visual Flight Rules chart, and it tells you where you're going. So that is one of the reasons to look outside quite a lot. Another reason is there might be birds flying that you need to avoid. There might be other planes. As you're flying under Visual Flight Rules, which is what we are doing right now. I'll talk about IFR instrument flight rules in a way later video. But Visual Flight Rules requires you to look out for planes and avoid them. ATC, air traffic controllers, is not going to do that for simple, small VFR flying planes. So you have to do it yourselves. And if you don't look outside, you're not going to see those planes early enough, and you could get into a dangerous situation. So they can also be terrain. Now the Netherlands is as flat as a pancake. Maybe even flatter than a pancake, I don't know. But you know, if you're flying in mountainous or hilly terrain, there might be some terrain that is above your current altitude that you're flying towards. And if you're really fixating on your instruments, if you're struggling to maintain, you know, the correct stuff, then you're going to hit that terrain. So there's all kinds of stuff that basically needs you to look outside, requires you to look outside. I would say about 90% of the time you look outside, and then 10% you just glance over to your instruments quickly, see if your airspeed is still correct, altitude is still where you want it to be, heading, vertical speed, stuff like that. But as you have trimmed correctly and don't touch the power, you know, as we have learned to level off, fly at a certain speed, this all shouldn't really change. So it actually gives us some time to actually look outside. I can actually see something flashing in the distance. I think that's our airfield again. That will help us a lot. Now feel free that, don't feel too worried about getting lost right now. You can always just reset the simulator and go back to the airport. I'm just going to fly there because in the next video we'll land. But let's talk about doing these basic maneuvers we've been talking about. Climbing, descending, making turns, flying level, while looking outside. So there's two things to do. First is we need to fly straight and level. Next is we need to fly or make turns while looking outside. So flying straight and level is what you'll be doing throughout most of your flights. You climb to a certain altitude, you maintain that altitude, and so that's level. And you fly straight towards a certain heading that you want to fly to, towards a certain direction. So on your flight plan that you've created, on your charts, you can kind of see, okay, I need to go northeast, maybe 30 or 60 degrees, which is what I'm flying to right now. And then, you know, okay, at this waypoint, you know, at a village that might be coming up, I need to turn to the right to east. So we need to look outside to do that. So how would I maintain a correct heading, in other words flying straight, and how would I fly level by just looking outside? Well, the first step is to make sure that your instruments tell you that everything is going as you want it to be. So let's say I need to head to 30 degrees. So I'm slightly off that. Let me just turn slightly to the left. There we go, 30 degrees. So my instruments tell me, okay, I'm moving to 30 degrees. That is flying straight. It's not changing, so I'm flying straight. So next I'm looking outside and I'm going to see if I can spot something ahead of me that is straight ahead of me, that I can kind of detect. Now I must say the Netherlands is actually a bad example for that because everything looks the same. But you know, there's this building here, there's a little patch of probably trees, this is windmill to my left. So as long as I stay kind of this direction to the right of this windmill, I know that I'm still going straight. So now by looking outside, I can just keep this in mind. I roughly know the line that I need to fly over, and as long as I do that, I know that I'm flying roughly to 30 degrees, but at least I'm not going to go in crazy directions. You can also use a cloud, but remember clouds move, so every minute or so you might want to pick a different cloud or a different feature on the terrain. Also, as you get closer to these features, you might want to pick a different one, because once they pass under you, they're not of much use anymore. So right now I'm flying towards this kind of brown field over there. You know, just pick something you can easily distinguish in the terrain if possible. So now by looking outside, I look ahead of me, that's where I'm going. I need to look ahead. I know that I'm going straight. That's the first part. So now we need to learn how to fly level. Well, again, our instruments will help us. We are flying perfectly level right now. I've actually trimmed very well, which is quite rare. It's very hard to actually maintain 0 vertical speed for a long time. So I'm happy with that. But I know that as long as my airspeed doesn't change, and as long as my vertical speed doesn't change, well, my altitude is not going to change. So we're flying level. And I see that my airspeed isn't changing right now because I've trimmed the plane nicely. And I've applied enough power to fly level, just the right amount. So I know we are flying level right now. So now I look outside again. I know that I'm going straight, but how would I know that I'm flying level? Well, the only thing right now that is changing whether or not I'm flying level is either we change the power, which I'm just not going to do, or the pitch of the plane changes. Now, yes, the plane is constantly bumping up and down, but it's not the same as changing the pitch, it's just little bumps. This is what changing pitch looks like. We're pitching up, or we're pitching down. So as long as that is not happening, that means I'm going to fly level. So let me just see if I mess things up a little bit. Let me fix that airspeed. Go back to 2000 or 1500 feet. But as long as you look outside and you don't see the horizon getting closer to your dashboard or further away, well, you're not pitching up or down. So you know that you should be flying level. Alright, that's as simple as that. So that is how we would fly straight by looking outside. Fly straight and level by looking outside. So right now this brown field is getting a little bit too close, so I might pick this little lighter field up ahead. You know, just something in the line that you're traveling to. So you can do this for a minute or so, you know, maybe half a minute, and then just glance over the instruments every now and then. See, okay, you know, I'm slightly high, so I'm going to reduce the power just a little bit to descend back exactly to 2,500 feet, but really this is not a big deal. But you can do that. Looking ahead again. And then I'm looking at my instruments again. Okay, we're not there yet, look ahead. Look at my airspeed. Okay, the altitude is getting there. So I'm going to add a little bit more power so we fly level again. And then I'm looking ahead again. And I can look to my left, enjoy the scenery, little lake there. Nice little patch of trees. I mean, Microsoft Flight Simulator is beautiful, so enjoy the scenery. We don't want to look at these boring instruments. We want to look ahead. So that is flying straight and level. And look at that, I'm still going to 30 degrees. I actually haven't looked at the heading indicator for this whole talk after we have set it. That's pretty cool. So that is flying straight and level. So now how about making turns while looking outside? Now making turns requires you to maintain 0 vertical speed as we have just discussed. So you need to pull back on the yoke to pitch up a little bit. But you can actually also use that same trick as what I did to see if we are pitching up and down by looking outside during the turn. So I'm going to make a turn to the right and then pitch up just enough so that we maintain 0 vertical speed. And then I'm going to look outside and I'm going to see if the horizon is still dropping or going up. I want that horizon to stay in the same position relative to my kind of the borders of my plane. So let me show you. I'm going to turn to the right and now I'm looking at my vertical speed indicator, pitching up just enough to keep at 0 vertical speed. And now I'm looking outside and I see where the horizon is in relation to my plane. And it is just here to the left of my dashboard, just above my dashboard. I'm going to keep it there because I know at this pitch angle my vertical speed is 0. So I'm going to keep this horizon just above my dashboard. And that is how I'm going to pitch. And as you can see, my vertical speed isn't really changing a lot. So yes, I'm looking a little bit more at my instruments during the turn as I'm turning, but I can do this for quite a long time. And you know, by looking mostly outside, we're not really changing our vertical speed a lot. That's pretty nice. So let me go fly a full circle here. I'll just make a little bit of a steeper turn. Sometimes the airspeed drops a little bit, as you can see. That's just because you're making a steeper turn and that kind of slows the plane down. But as you roll level again, that should go back up. So let's turn back towards the east, towards that airfield. And I keep just, by looking outside, you know, I can keep that horizon where I want it to be. The same goes for a left turn, you just put the horizon in the correct point there. And I'm going to roll back out. I can see the flashing lights of the runway ahead again. And I'm going to check out that my airspeed stabilizes again, that my vertical speed goes back to 0. Maybe I need to retrim, maybe I need to adjust the power a little bit to fix those things, but everything is actually pretty stable again. So nice, we have managed to make a turn by looking outside. So remember, look outside, see how the horizon is doing relative to your dashboard, to the side of the plane, see if it's going up and down. If it is, that means your vertical speed is about to change, so you want to adjust that. If it doesn't, you keep looking outside because everything is still the same. and then 10 seconds later just glance at your instruments, maybe 20 seconds later, see if everything is still good, and then look outside. Alright, so that is how to make turns and how to maneuver the plane by looking outside, which is going to be important for what we'll do next, because we're going to land, and well, for that we really need to aim to a runway, and I can't see a runway over here, but we will be able to see it over there. So in the next video we will land at the airport.